Welcome back, troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. Relic guitars are kind of an object of controversy, but I think this is one that we're all going to be able to agree on. This has to be Gibson's worst hour at aging a guitar. It was nearly a year ago that Chicago Music Exchange listed this Les Paul for $8,999, and the internet broke out in a storm over this guitar. So let's go ahead and take a look at this heavy-aged Les Paul. So this one was based on a 1956 Gibson Les Paul Goldtop that had been modified, because traditionally it would have had two P90 pickups. They put a humbucker in the bridge to A, make it different, and technically somebody could have routed it out, and many people have done this to vintage guitars. And true to spec, they gave it an ABR1 bridge with a stop bar tailpiece. But the aging on this guitar is very questionable, to say the least. Vintage Goldtops, yes, they do turn green, but they don't quite turn this shade of green in all of these areas. And personally, I find some of these wear spots a little bit questionable. Like the one up here, okay, I get it. Somebody's strumming over the neck, and you could potentially have a heavy picker in these areas, but this just does not look realistic. And this is just in the stock photos. Once you get it in regular lighting situations, it just kind of becomes even more confusing about what this guitar was going for. The finish checking, it's not too bad. It's not the most realistic, but at least at this angle, the wear down to the bare wood looks a little bit more realistic. The thing that I really hate though is this line right here, where the finish stops and the wood begins, because it would never be that crisp of a line on a truly worn-in instrument. And I hate being a Debbie Downer on whoever put the time into this. It's just not their finest work. You can see the same thing is true with that whole straight line thing right here on the back, where they ripped off the finish from there, and they did a similar thing on the neck right here. But hey, at least the headstock looks somewhat respectable, right? And they did a really nice job aging the tuners. But when I first saw this guitar back in January, I didn't want to feature it because I thought it would just be a completely negative episode. Why would they even make this guitar? It's just like a high-end historic BFG. But then I found a post on the Les Paul forum that transformed my opinion of this guitar. This was kind of like a secret collector's choice. CME custom ordered this guitar to replicate someone else's. And here's that guitar. Wow, doesn't this just automatically look so much better? I can see why somebody would want to replicate this finish. It's just such a beautiful thing, a way a vintage Goldtop ages when it's been used heavily. So here we can see the same type of wear and tear where it just gradually moves into the bare wood, and you've got just a little bit of greening around the edge here. You also have just a hair on this edge, as well as right here in the cutaway. And the spots that have worn away from playing, as we were talking about earlier on the reissue, they just look much better on this one. So when we flip back to the reissue, it's like, is this like a partial iguana burst thing going on? I think the problem is they didn't age the finish correctly. Because despite this being a Goldtop, it almost kind of looks like a really faded out sunburst by how much dirt and grime has worked its way into the finish checking. Because the checking between the models is nowhere near correct, and maybe it's just the missing pickguard on this new one that makes it not work. So it was a good attempt. Somebody tried to recreate this guitar, but they just didn't quite have the right materials to do it, and maybe they went a little bit too overboard with this whole greening thing. And to add insult to injury, the $8,999 price tag wasn't the most attractive for most people, but it did end up selling, or maybe they returned it back to Gibson, I don't know. But at this point in time, it is no longer available. I couldn't find a playing sample of this particular instrument, but let's go ahead and check out a Gibson BFG, because those have a similar pickup layout.
kill switch.
The only question left, would you rock potentially the worst custom-aged guitar ever built by Gibson or not? Leave your answer down in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care.